Hi, I'm Dr. Gurung. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. Normally, I tend to read a book within a week, but this time I got a hold of this book, The Mind of a Murderer. This book is written by Dr. Richard Taylor. He's a forensic psychiatrist who has got almost 35 to 40-year experience working in forensic psychiatrist. Uh, the reason why I wanted to read this book is I wanted to understand how Dr. Richard Taylor analyzed cases, and it's also important for me to think as Richard Taylor when I see complex cases in my own clinical practice. I think this is like the fifth series of books that I've read from forensic psychiatrist. There were a couple of things that I found interesting about this book. This book was written on different themes. Some of the themes that it covered was sexual sexual murders, terrorism, psychotic homicides, woman killing children, man killing partner, woman killing partner, as well as it also covered what is the next thing we can prevent. Uh, Before I read this book, I have to acknowledge I had some prejudice and bias around murderers. But after I read this book, there were a couple of things that I learned that I need to be aware of, and I need to have a better understanding on this concept. One of the things that I learned was I thought murder was just a crime, but reading this book, I've also acknowledged now murder is not just a crime, it's also a public health problem. Um, when I read this book, the theme that I found it quite interesting was whether a murderer is born or is created by the society. Um, and when we talk about psychopaths, psychopaths has got more tendency of being a murderer. And when we have to analyze psychopath means people who has got anti-social tendency, lack of apathy. uh, in cases like this, as a psychiatrist, I've also learned that it's very important to analyze the childhood history. When we talk about childhood history, some of the things that we need to tease it out is interpersonal problem, attachment disorders. It's quite interesting that people who come from a lower socioeconomic status, they turn into sadistic killer, and people who have got better kind of environment, sometimes those psychopaths also come in the domains of corporate snakes. So we need to be aware of that. And in murderers, people who murder, there are three things that is found very common. One is personality disorder, drugs, and psychotic disorder. And having all of this is considered as a triple whammy, which increases the risk of being a murderer. Now, this is one of the themes that it covers. The other thing, while reading this book, the second concept which I found it quite interesting was, as a human, even a normal person who has got jealousy, entitlement, and power, even a normal person can turn into criminal given the circumstances. So, some emotions, if we are not able to handle, like harassment, threat, and violence, it can also ignite a normal person to become a murderer. So we need to be aware that it's not a good idea to put everyone in the same kind of group, or see everything through a plain sight. Okay. Now the last bit which I found it quite interesting is how can we prevent murderers or homicides cases in our society. So there were a couple of things that were suggested. Number one, I found it quite interesting, is it needs to be in education curriculum how to manage emotions. I've also realized that, especially in NHS, they are using different terms of being less restrictive, but by doing that, what is happening is they are cutting on the bed and the resources. These resources can be actually used in cases where we can address and treat mental illness, especially like psychotic disorders, which can prevent cases of murders and homicides. um, the other point also, since I have worked in addiction, one of the things that I find it quite interesting is addiction services are not a part of NHS. It's hard to find. um, the NHS and the government needs to prioritize that it needs to be a part of NHS, because a lot of the cases of murders and homicides has got an element of substance in it. um, the take home message for me as a psychiatrist is, as a psychiatrist, we can analyze someone's mental health, but we are not a god to prevent um, homicides or murder. But we can focus on providing better treatment. And the treatment doesn't just means medication. The treatment also means the society or the social aspect needs to be stronger in order to address it. Thank you very much.